I was on a road trip through the countryside, chasing stories of forgotten places and lost histories. My work as a travel journalist often took me to remote areas, but nothing had prepared me for what I found in the village of Greystone. It wasn't on any map, just a rumor passed on by a local I met at a small-town diner. "You should check out Greystone," the old man had said, his voice low as if he were afraid someone might overhear. "It's not far from here, but no one goes there anymore. They say it's cursed." Naturally, my curiosity was piqued, so I decided to make a detour and find this forgotten place. The road to Greystone was narrow and overgrown, barely more than a dirt path that wound through dense woods. My GPS lost signal miles ago, and I had to rely on my instincts and the directions the old man had given me. The trees loomed overhead, blocking out most of the sunlight. After what felt like hours, the trees finally parted, revealing a small clearing with a few dilapidated houses. Greystone. The village was unsettlingly quiet. Not a single bird sang and the air was still, heavy with an unnatural calm. The houses were old, their wooden walls rotting and roofs caving in, as if they had been abandoned for decades. I wandered through the narrow streets, my camera at the ready. There was no sign of life, no indication that anyone had lived here in years. The windows were shattered, doors hung off their hinges and weeds choked the paths. As I explored, I noticed something strange. There were no signs of animals, no birds, no stray dogs or cats, not even insects. The village was completely devoid of life. I stopped in front of what must have been the village square. In the center stood an old well, its stone walls covered in moss and ivy. The sight of it sent a shiver down my spine, and I couldn't explain why. It was just an ordinary well, but something about it felt wrong. Ignoring the growing sense of unease, I approached the well, peering over the edge. I dropped a small rock into the well and listened, but instead of the expected splash, there was nothing, no sound at all. Suddenly, the ground beneath me shifted. I stumbled back, barely catching myself before I fell. The earth around the well had sunk slightly, as if something beneath it had moved. My heart pounded as I stared at the well, now certain that it was the source of the village's eerie atmosphere. I decided to leave. Whatever story lay hidden in Greystone, it wasn't worth the growing dread gnawing at me. I turned to head back to my car, but the path I had taken seemed different. The trees appeared closer, the shadows deeper. It was as if the village had subtly changed, and I realized with a start that I was lost. Panic set in as I retraced my steps, trying to find my way out. But every turn led me back to the well. It was as if the village itself was playing tricks on me, keeping me from leaving. "Get a grip," I told myself, trying to steady my breathing. "It's just an old village. There's nothing here." But deep down, I knew that wasn't true. There was something here. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw movement. I froze, my breath catching in my throat. Slowly, I turned to face the source, my eyes scanning the shadows. At first, I saw nothing, but then they appeared. Figures, dark, indistinct, and utterly silent. They stood at the edge of the clearing just beyond the trees. They didn't move, didn't speak, but I could feel their eyes on me, watching, waiting. I backed away, my mind screaming at me to run. The figures remained still, but the air around me grew colder. Finally, my legs responded and I bolted for the car. I didn't look back. Didn't dare. I fumbled with the keys, my hands shaking uncontrollably, but I managed to get the door open and throw myself inside. The engine roared to life, and I tore down the dirt path, the village quickly disappearing in the rearview mirror. I didn't stop until I reached the main road, my heart still racing. I pulled over and sat there for a long time, trying to calm down, trying to make sense of what had just happened. But no matter how much I thought about it, I couldn't shake the feeling that the village had let me go. For now. I never wrote about Greystone. Some stories, I realized, are better left untold. And as I drove away from that cursed place, I knew one thing for certain. I would never return. Whatever terrifying secret the village held. You know how people always say strange things happen at Walmart? I never really believed it, until it happened to me. This is the story of the creepiest thing that ever happened to me, and it still sends shivers down my spine whenever I think about it. It was just a regular Saturday evening. I had run out of a few things at home, so I decided to make a quick trip to Walmart. I figured I'd be in and out within 30 minutes, grab what I needed, and head back home to relax for the night. But as soon as I walked through those sliding glass doors, something felt off. You know that weird feeling you get when you sense someone's watching you even though there's no one there? That's exactly how I felt, but I shrugged it off. Maybe it was just the fluorescent lights or the air conditioning blowing a bit too cold. The store was pretty empty, which was strange because Walmart is usually packed on weekends. I didn't think too much of it at first. Maybe everyone had finished shopping earlier, or maybe there was some event going on that I didn't know about. I pushed my cart through the aisles, grabbing the things I needed, and tried to ignore the nagging feeling that something was wrong. As I turned into the frozen food section, I noticed a man standing at the end of the aisle. He was tall, wearing a long, dark coat. Kind of strange for a warm evening, right? His back was to me and he seemed to be staring intently at the rows of frozen pizzas. Nothing weird about that, right? People stare at products all the time. But as I walked closer, I felt an inexplicable chill. It wasn't cold, but it felt like the temperature had dropped several degrees. Suddenly, the man turned around, and I swear I've never seen a face like that before. His eyes were wide open, unblinking, and his skin was unnaturally pale, almost like he hadn't seen sunlight in years. But what really got me was the way he looked at me, like he was staring straight through me, as if I wasn't even there. I quickly looked away and pretended to be interested in a box of frozen vegetables, hoping he'd just go about his business and leave me alone. But then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw him start walking toward me. My heart began to race, and 1,000 thoughts ran through my head. Why was he coming toward me? What did he want? Was I just being paranoid? I decided to move to the next aisle, trying to put some distance between us. But as I turned the corner, there he was again, standing at the end of the aisle, still staring. How did he get there so fast? I hadn't heard any footsteps, and I was sure he couldn't have walked around the store that quickly. My pulse quickened, and I started to feel genuinely scared. Was I imagining things? Was he really following me, or was this just some weird coincidence? I kept moving through the store, trying to finish my shopping as quickly as possible. But no matter which aisle I went down, he was always there, just standing and staring. His eyes never left me. It felt like I was trapped in some twisted game of cat and mouse, and I was the prey. I finally decided I'd had enough. I needed to get out of there. I pushed my cart toward the self-checkout, trying not to look back, but I could feel his gaze burning into my back. I scanned my items as quickly as I could, my hands trembling so much that I almost dropped a few things. But just when I thought I was in the clear, I noticed something horrifying on the security monitor above the checkout. Something that made my blood run cold. There were 2 people on the screen, me and the man. But here's the thing. On the monitor, he was standing right behind me, just inches away from my back. I whipped around in panic, but there was no one there. I was completely alone. How was that possible? Did the cameras malfunction, or was something far more sinister happening? I grabbed my bags and practically ran out of the store, not even bothering to get my receipt. When I got to my car, I locked the doors immediately and sat there trying to catch my breath. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst out of my chest. I didn't dare look back at the store, afraid of what, or who, I might see. To this day, I have no idea what really happened that night. Maybe it was just my mind playing tricks on me, or maybe it was something else, something I can't explain. All I know is that I've never been back to that Walmart since, and I don't plan on going back anytime soon. So, if you ever find yourself in an empty aisle at Walmart and feel like you're being watched, just get out of there. You never know who or what might be following you. The night was pitch black, the kind of darkness that swallows everything in its path. My car's headlights barely cut through the thick, suffocating gloom as I drove down the lonely country road. The trees on either side loomed like twisted sentinels, their branches clawing at the sky. The only sound was the steady hum of my engine and the occasional crunch of gravel under my tires. I hadn't seen another car for miles, and I couldn't shake the uneasy feeling creeping up my spine. I was returning from a long drive out of town, and the GPS had taken me down this back road to save time. But now, as I navigated the endless twists and turns, I regretted not sticking to the main highway. Something about this place felt wrong. I tried to ignore the growing sense of dread, telling myself it was just my imagination running wild. But deep down, I knew something was off. As if on cue, my phone rang, startling me. The screen lit up, casting an eerie glow in the dark car. Unknown number. I hesitated for a moment before answering. Hello? There was silence on the other end, followed by a faint crackling sound like static. I frowned and repeated, "Hello? Who is this?" The crackling continued, then a voice came through, barely above a whisper. "Don't look back." Chills raced down my spine. My grip tightened on the steering wheel, my knuckles turning white. "Who is this?" I demanded, but the line went dead. I glanced in the rearview mirror out of instinct, but the darkness behind me was impenetrable. I couldn't see a thing. My heart pounded in my chest as fear settled in my gut like a lead weight. What was that? A prank? A wrong number? But the voice had sounded so real, so close. I shook my head, trying to focus on the road. "Get a grip, man," I muttered to myself. "It's just a stupid call." But the unease wouldn't let go. The road seemed to stretch on forever, each mile more suffocating than the last. The trees pressed in closer, their gnarled branches almost scraping against the sides of my car. My headlights flickered for a split second, plunging the road into darkness before coming back on. My pulse quickened. Had I imagined that? Then the phone rang again. I nearly jumped out of my seat. The same unknown number flashed on the screen. My hands were trembling as I picked it up. "Who the hell is this?" I snapped. This time the voice was clearer, more urgent. "Whatever you do, don't stop. Keep driving. Don't look back." My blood ran cold. "What are you talking about? Who are you?" But there was no answer. Just a low, ominous hum that grew louder and louder, until I had to pull the phone away from my ear. The line went dead once more. I stared at the screen, dread pooling in my stomach. This couldn't be real. Someone was messing with me, right? I glanced in the rearview mirror again, and this time, I saw something. My breath caught in my throat. There was a shadow, a dark, indistinct shape hovering at the edge of the road just within the reach of my taillights. It wasn't a car. It wasn't an animal. It was something else, something that didn't belong in this world. Panic surged through me. My foot pressed down on the gas pedal, and the car lurched forward. I didn't care about the speed limit anymore. I just needed to get away from whatever that was. The road blurred as I sped up, but when I dared to glance in the mirror again, the shadow was still there, closer now as if it was following me. The phone rang a third time. My hands shook so badly I could barely answer it. "Please, just tell me what's going on." The voice on the other end was desperate, almost pleading. "You need to listen. Don't stop no matter what you see. It feeds on fear, on doubt. It wants you to look back. Don't let it in." "What is it? What's following me?" But the voice didn't answer. The call ended abruptly, leaving me in suffocating silence. My heart was racing, my mind spiraling with terror. This couldn't be happening. There had to be a logical explanation, but I couldn't find one. Then, out of nowhere, the car began to slow down on its own. The engine sputtered, and the lights flickered again, almost going out completely. I slammed my foot on the gas, but the car barely responded. "No, no, no!" I shouted, frantically trying to keep the car moving. But it was useless. The engine died, and the car rolled to a stop in the middle of the road. I was stranded. The shadow, whatever it was getting closer. I could feel it. I reached for the ignition, my fingers trembling as I turned the key over and over, but the engine wouldn't start. Then I heard it, a soft rasping sound coming from behind me, like the breath of something not quite human. The hairs on the back of my neck stood on end. I didn't dare look in the mirror this time. "Don't look back." The words echoed in my head. The voice from the phone etched into my mind. And then, from the corner of my eye, I saw movement in the side mirror. A figure, dark and twisted, moving slowly towards the car. My resolve crumbled. I couldn't take it anymore. My head turned slowly, almost against my will. And then I saw it. The last thing I remember before everything went black was a face, twisted and malevolent, inches from mine. Eyes empty, a mouth stretched in an unnatural, ghastly grin. It was a face of pure, unrelenting terror, something not meant for this world. When I woke up, I was slumped over the steering wheel, drenched in cold sweat. The car was running, the road ahead clear and empty. I don't know how long I sat there, trying to calm my frantic heart. I'm still not sure what happened that night. Was it a hallucination? A nightmare? I escaped, but that face still haunts me every time I close my eyes. What do you think? Was it all in my head, or is there something more to this? Leave your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more. You never know what might be lurking in the darkness.